Hello, Charles County. Welcome to another episode of Let's Get Fiscal and Inside Your County Government. We are here today to talk about property taxes. But before you hear those words and you panic or you get upset, we've got some really great information for you today and a very special guest. We're going to talk to you about what property taxes are and how your property gets assessed and ways that you can save some money here in Charles County. We're going to get you resources. So if you feel like you are needing help in figuring out when to pay, how to pay, and what credits might be available to you, we've got those resources available to you. Thrilled that you're joining us today. I'm Doria Fleisher with the Media Division. We have a really special guest joining us today. Bob Yeager is the Director of the State Department of Assessments and Taxation. Thanks so much for being here, Bob.
Great to be with you, Doria.
I appreciate you coming down and traveling all the way to Charles County for this because you are statewide. And I loved that when you got here, you said that this is fun for you, that this is a chance for you to get out and about and educate and be in the community. So thanks for being with us.
Pleasure to be with you. Yeah, it sure is. We're really anxious for any opportunity to help people understand the resources that are available. So glad to talk about that today.
Lovely. Thank you so much. And then the face that you guys are used to seeing in Charles County when we talk about property taxes, the famous Eric Jackson, our Chief of Treasury. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you for having me, Doria. I'm glad to be here today.
And Eric, you're usually the person we turn to when we have any property tax questions.
Yes, any tax questions on the tax rates, tax sales, why are my taxes so high? Anything that comes up, usually it's why are my taxes so high? Why am I getting this bill? Do I need to send to my mortgage company? Just questions like that we always answer.
And I know you do an amazing job answering them. I know we also have some old podcast episodes and videos about property taxes. So people can go back if they want more of you. But I'm so thrilled that today you get to kind of be the nope, Bob's going to answer that first. Yeah?
Yes, that is great today. And it's a pleasure to have Bob with me because now it's like we're tag teaming and we're answering questions that usually come up from the citizens each day.
That's beautiful. It's a good partnership. And of course, our co-host, Jake Dyer, our Director of Fiscal and Administrative Services. Thanks for being here as always, Jake.
Thanks for having me again.
And Jake, Let's Get Fiscal, I think, is coming up on year 3. Is that possible? Year 2 or 3?
Yeah.
I mean, we've been doing this for a while.
Yeah.
And this has been on the list for a long time. Yes?
Yes.
Let's get somebody in from Maryland to talk about this. So thanks, Bob. We really appreciate it.
So honored to be the first one to satisfy this long need. So I'm happy to talk about the assessment process.
Well, let's start. Tell us about you. Tell us about you and your role, and then we'll talk about what I'm going to call it SDAT, so I don't have to keep repeating.
Please do.
Okay,
it's a
perfect.
long title.
So let's start with you, and then we'll talk about SDAT.
Sure. So I'm the Director of SDAT. I was appointed last summer by the governor. So I've worked with SDAT. I worked at SDAT for around 7 years. I started off in our business services unit as an attorney helping businesses start. And then I became the state tax sale ombudsman and helped people who are struggling to pay their property taxes. I went to the Office of Financial Regulation where I was the assistant commissioner for policy, and then came back as deputy director about 1.5 years ago, and then was appointed this year. So my goal is to really modernize our processes, help our customers achieve their goals, help them access the resources that are available, understand what we do, and then also help our employees have a better work experience. So,
because when we're all happier, when everybody's working together, life is good.
Yes, for sure.
Love it.
For sure.
And I want to ask a little bit about what the role of SDAT is in the community. So if you can talk about that. And then I'm going to ask you to define the word ombudsman because you said it once, and I think it's a word we throw around a lot in government that people may not have a real clear idea of what it is. So if you can talk about SDAT and then that piece.
Sure. So SDAT has 3 major divisions. Our first division is every business that operates in Maryland registers with SDAT. So we help people, new entrepreneurs and business owners, start new businesses, out-of-state businesses register to conduct business in Maryland, and then we assess their business personal property for counties that assess that tax. So we work very closely with the business community in that aspect. We also have a tax credits unit, which includes the Ombudsman's office. So we have several tax credits where we provide relief for assistance to help people pay their property taxes, and then particularly help people who are struggling with tax sale.
And I think I know people are excited to hear about that tax credit thing and relief because all the time, that's what we hear from residents, and especially at a time when our economy is really tight. I know people are worried about paying that bill. So I promise, if you keep listening, we're going to talk to you later about what you can do if you have problems with your tax bill. But tell us about that third.
Sure, and the third is our largest division, which is our real property assessments unit. So we assess the value of all real estate throughout the state.
And Bob, you're handling a huge amount of property and revenue. So
Play. Maryland is unique in the United States where the state assesses the value of the properties and the counties apply their tax rate and collect the property taxes. So our main focus is always accuracy of that assessment and providing that calculation to the counties so that they can apply their tax rate and collect their taxes.
excellent. And talk to us about when you said Maryland's unique, that the state does the assessment and then the county makes the
We base the taxes off of the assessed value.
Thank you. I needed that.
Yes.
Thank you, Eric. What are the advantages to that?
So it removes the conflict of interest between the assessment process and the tax collection process. So when we, like I said, when we were assessing the values of the properties, we're just concerned about accuracy. What's the valuation that we can put on this property that is defendable in court, that is not more than what the person's likely to be able to sell this property for, and that's all we're concerned about. We're not concerned about if a county has enough revenue or if there need to be adjustments in that way. So in that regard, it really removes that potential conflict of interest.
I was so interested when you were talking about that. And Eric and Jake, I got all like, this is amazing. This is what government does best, of like, we've got the checks and the balances and we make sure that everybody's working together. Do you guys get as excited about that? Or to you, this is just like, no, that's how we do it?
No, I think we do get excited about it because what it does, it definitely separates everything. And if a citizen calls or if they have a complaint, they cannot say that, well, you guys are raising our assessed values. We can say, no, it's not us, it's the state that's doing that. And if you look at your tax bill, you see what your assessed value is, and then if you calculate the tax rates, that's what it is. And you can see that your tax rate has not changed, and on the tax bill, we definitely have two lines, like the prior year and the current year.
So you can compare.
So you can compare, and you can see that your tax rate has not changed.
I find that really helpful. Bob, we're gonna bounce around a little bit, but talk to us first, just that word ombudsman that you used, and I know we're gonna go back at the end, but just open with that for us, please.
Sure. So the ombudsman role is someone who helps people navigate the governmental process, whatever that involves. So for us, we have a state tax sale ombudsman, and that person helps our taxpayers navigate the different resources, understand that legal process they have to follow, connect with different groups, whether if they're trying to pay their tax bill, it helps them connect with their county finance office, connect with tax credits, connect with loan programs, local grants, but also things like housing counselors and budget counselors and legal service providers and other sort of resources that may come up in that discussion. So it's a really important role that we have at our office, and it's a growing office that has more benefits that we could talk about.
That's awesome. And I come from a background of human services and social services, and that case management approach of like, I'm not just going to tell you yes or no, I'm going to walk you through the process and make sure you have what you need.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So in a minute, I'm going to ask you to talk to us about the assessment process, but I want to just kind of set the stage for what is the one thing, Bob, that you want to talk about today, that if I said to you, like, we can get one thing to stick in the brains of every Charles County resident who listens or watches this, what do you want them to walk away with? And then Eric and Jake, get ready. I'm going to put you on the spot for the same thing.
I would say first, when it comes to assessments, take a good look at your assessment notice. Make sure that all the information is accurate on there. Also, make sure if you're in an owner-occupied property, you've applied for the homestead tax credit. That's an incredibly important resource that helps people stabilize their tax bills each year. And then also, if your income fits within the parameters of the homeowner's tax credit, definitely apply for the tax credit every year. It's something you have to reapply for. It's based on your income from the previous year. But it's an enormous resource that it makes property taxes extremely affordable. And then if you know anyone struggling with property taxes, contact the Ombudsman's office. They can connect you with all the resources, even our assessment office. So
That's awesome. So just the resources are there.
Yeah.
And that you guys actually want to talk to people.
And we're struggling to get the information out to make people aware of these resources,
Right.
make them aware of what that process looks like, make it as easy as possible. So we want their feedback. So we want to hear from you.
Awesome. I love it. Okay, Eric, what's the one thing that, like, when you knew we were scheduling this and this conversation that we've all been looking forward to, what were you like, ooh, and this is what I want people to remember?
One thing is that there are resources out there to help individuals, especially our seniors in the community, to possibly have a lower tax bill. We do have credits for that. And also, when the tax bill comes out in the mail, there are inserts that are in the mail, which are very pertinent to what's going on with the taxes, and that you please read through those. And if you have not received your tax bill within the second week of July, please call our office.
Okay.
We're always there 5 days a week, 8 to 4:30, and we don't. Doesn't matter how long the conversations take. We're there to help everybody.
And I appreciate the ongoing theme of, yes, you have to do this. Yes, it's probably not fun. Yes, we probably are all going to complain. And yet we've got the resources there, but it requires the engagement. Like, you have to reach out to us. If you have a problem, let us know. So I appreciate that engagement is always a two-way thing, where we can try to get the information out there, but we need you to engage. All right, Jake, what's the thing you're most excited to talk about or share today?
I kind of want to echo what they both said.
Yeah.
I just really want to get the information out there for people to understand how the assessment process works, as well as the tax credit programs out there to make home ownership in 40-year tax bill affordable.
Awesome. All right, let's talk assessments.
Sure.
Who, what, where, when, why, how? What is
So-
this assessment business going on
Yeah,
here?
so what we do is because we assess each property every 3 years, each county's divided into 3 sections. So our assessment team focuses on group 1 1 year, group 2 the next year, group 3 the third year. And so at the end of 3 years, we've assessed all the properties. So as we complete our group of assessments, the reassessment notice goes to the property owner on January 1st of each year. That's where I say it's very important for property owners to take a close look at that, make sure all the information is accurate. If you feel this valuation isn't appropriate, there are methods to appeal and provide additional information to better inform us about the value of your property. So we encourage people to do that. So there's 3 different ways you can appeal the assessment. You can do it in that 45-day period when you first get your reassessment notice. You can also petition for review to your local SDAT assessment office in the interim, in a year where you didn't have a reassessment. And then you can also appeal your assessment when you purchase a new property. You'll get an assessment notice that tells you the value we've placed on it, and then that's your opportunity to put that, to give us additional information. We're very interested in information we may not have about your property. So if we have it valued as similar properties, but you know that because your property, even though it looks like other similar properties on your block, there's something very different about it, let us know, because we can take that into consideration. We don't always know what's going on inside your house, so that's very important.
And I know that's something that, Eric, you've talked a lot when we've done episodes in the past, but also talking to Citizens Academy about. This is not an assessment where SDAT is walking around in a vest and like looking into your house with binoculars and, you know, knocking on the floors to see if they're solid or not. What does an assessment look like?
So we're not looking at each property. That's really important to understand. This is a mass appraisal system. So we use the IAAO standards, which is an international standard for assessments for taxation purposes. Mm-hmm. And it has many, many factors, different data points that we bring into the process. But basically, we're grouping properties. Each time we reassess, we're grouping similar properties and looking for similarities, looking for things that make it similar to another group, and redefining those groups each time we reassess. Then we can use comparable sales that will allow us to apply that to all the properties that are in that group. Again, we don't know all the specifics about each individual property, but it's the way that we do it so that we're able to cover the large number of properties and give them the fairest assessment as possible. We're shooting for between 95 and 98% of the likely resale value of the property. So that's where we come from, and then as the property owner, that's your chance to appeal that if you see something.
And that's that two-way process of like, we're going to do our part and we're going to follow these standards so that we're doing it fairly, equitably, accurately. But you as the resident has the opportunity to be like, hey, but what you didn't know is that this about my house, it actually isn't just like Eric's house, even though you compared them.
Right.
Yeah.
That my backyard is partially a wetland and there's some other factor that we're not aware of, or that you need to flag for us, and then we can make that adjustment.
That makes sense. Okay. I think that's really helpful because I think sometimes people just assume that this is really based on like somebody looking directly at their house on Zillow, and it's not.
And sometimes that happens. If you're in another thing that triggers our reassessments is when there's new construction. So if you have, we rely on permits that come from the counties that say there's a list of properties where a permit was pulled, they're doing construction that's valued at over $100,000, that will trigger us to do an out-of-cycle reassessment. We'll go and we'll take a look at that property physically to see, like, have they put an enormous addition on the back? Have they made a big change to this property? And then we calculate a new assessment for that. So there are instances where we do see properties in person.
And we do get assessment data every quarter from SDAT to say, hey, we picked up these new properties, the value is now that. And then we also get a once-a-year assessment that tells you what the whole entire county is. We normally get that at the beginning of our budget process in the November time period, because by then they already know what the January 1 assessment for the new cycle is, and we take that data to incorporate that into our budget process.
That's an amazing lead in. So, Jake, Eric, I want to talk. We're going to, Bob, catch your breath. You got a minute. You got a break here. We want to be fair that we dragged you all the way down here. You don't have to talk the whole time. So the property gets assessed. The homeowner gets the assessment, and if they disagree with it, they do something about it. And if they agree with it, they agree with it. And how does that then transition to Charles County? How do we move from Maryland State to what happens at the county level?
So you get your tax bill. Generally, try to send them out the first week in July. So usually July 4th, when everyone's at their cookout, they're saying, you know what, I got this tax bill. I'm going to use this to start my fire to burn so I can get my hot dog and hamburger. So we generally send that out along with everything. There's a recycling insert in it as well, which speaks of recycling. And then when you see your tax bill, it's blue and white, and then it has the due dates. So the first due date, if it's owner-occupied property, or is by September 30th, and then the second due date is by December 31st.
And that's when I'm going to get my assessment first in the mail, and the assessment comes directly through SDAT, but when I get my property tax through the mail, it's coming through Charles County government.
Charles County, correct.
Right.
Yes.
And I think that is that interesting separation also of nobody's doing too much and nobody's doing too little, and that we know.
I want to clarify, when
Yeah.
you get your assessment, it's going to tell you what your property's value for the next 3 years. So you only get it every 3 years. So it'll tell you in year one, your property's assessed for $200,000, and then it shows you what it's going to be year 2 and year 3. Now, if you have the homestead tax credit process, it can only go up by the amount of the homestead tax credit. You cannot exceed it. So that's something you got to look forward to.
Right. So when we revalue a property once every 3 years,
Right.
that valuation is phased in over the next 3 years. So when you get your reassessment notice in January, it says this is the new value. If it's safe, if it went up $30,000 in value, it's going to be phased in 10,000 more, 10,000 in the third year. So it's another effort it's another strategy to keep it affordable, to make these changes in assessed value adjustable. And like Jake said, if you have the homestead tax credit, there's a cap on what those increases can be. So and that can really control the costs. Eventually, it will phase out to the correct amount, but it sort of softens that transition to what the new
That
value
makes sense,
is.
especially because it is that 3 year that you at least know what your next 3 years are going to look like, instead of getting, I'm going to say, and you guys can give me dirty looks if you don't want me to say this, sticker shock. Because we do hear from, I would assume, everybody in the state of Maryland, but specifically in Charles County, that stuff just gets more and more and more expensive. So this gives that phase in is good.
And there's sticker shocks, and it's sticker shock by region of the county. So it's every
Yes.
3 years. So I'll look at the assessments in Charles County. 1 year is Waldorf, 1 year is La Plata South, and another year is the western side of the county. That's kind of how the assessment works, and they take turns, 1, 2, 3. And then I think this past year we just did the western side of the county. So the next one would be, I think it's Waldorf. I could be wrong, but
And circles in.
Yeah, so
That
yeah.
makes sense.
And that's also, by design, that the frequency of the assessments really does keep that sticker shock to more of a minimum. We hear about other states where they might do it every 5 years or every 7 years, and so there's an enormous increase that can happen in that
Right.
period of time. So I think the
The 3 is
frequency allows-
intentional.
Yeah, the 3 is very intentional, and then the phase in is also intentional.
That makes sense. Okay, so we've talked about your property gets assessed. You get an assessment. This is what you can do if you don't agree with it. We've talked about then it becomes used in your tax bill.
Yes.
Don't forget to pay your taxes,
Correct.
says Eric Jackson every year. Talk to us about what exists so that regardless of whether your assessment goes up or the county has a higher rate, people can afford.
Absolutely. And so the first credit, the most important one for everybody to apply for, is the homestead tax credit. That's what we talked about, where it's going to cap that amount. In Charles County, it's a 7% cap. So that means if the property is assessed at more than 7% more than that, the assessment can only go up 7%. The taxable assessment can only go up 7% each year. So again, it's another way to kind of have another layer of phasing in that tax rate.
And what I know we have to apply annually. I've heard that a lot. But who is eligible for?
So everyone's eligible for the homestead if it's an owner-occupied property, and you only have to apply one time. So you apply one time and you get a homestead on the property, and as long as your driver's license address doesn't change, or other triggers that would, you turn it into a rental property, you move someplace else, you apply for a homestead on another property that you own. Those are triggers, and there's lots of audits that make sure
what you should do is if you buy a brand new property, that should be the first thing you do is apply for this homestead tax credit. Don't wait, get it done right away, because now you're going to forget about it, and then you'll get your tax bill in July, and it's going to grow 25%.
And when we're saying owner occupied property, that is so that you only have one. That is your one.
You only get one homestead.
Right. And so that if Eric has 3,000 rental properties across the county, he's not getting that tax credit on each one. He's getting it on the house he lives in.
Right.
Okay.
And they apply for that, and we look at your driver's license record, and we look at those other factors that make you eligible for it, and then you have it. So now you have that buffer. But another credit is that we have an income-based credit, the homeowner's property tax credit. So even though you're aware of what your taxes are going to be for those 3 years, if your income goes below $60,000 in 1 year, the following year you're able to apply for relief. And the homestead tax credit, the first one we talked about, is where the county will discount your tax bill to make it more affordable. For the homeowner's property tax credit, the state will actually pay the county finance office on behalf of the homeowner for part or all of their property taxes based on the income ratio and their tax bill.
And I'm thinking about Charles County is a big commute to DC property, and we had changes in the federal government where people's incomes did change and jobs were lost. And I'm thinking about how many of our residents know to do that if they lost their job in the previous year, that they can receive help. And I hope people will listen and watch this and then reach out and see if that applies to them. Jake, you looked like you were going to say something.
No.
Oh, okay, gotcha. I thought you had
in addition to that, there is a county supplement that we have for seniors. So on top of the homeowner's tax credit, and it falls under the same parameters if your income is $60,000 or less, which we just raised a year ago to $60,000. That depending on what your income is, and along with some other things that we put in our tax bill, that you can get a credit on top of the state credit.
Gotcha.
And that's a yearly application.
That you have to
apply
do each one.
through the state, and then the information comes from the state to Eric that says give so-and-so this tax credit.
That makes sense. And tell me if I'm saying this correctly. When you say, Eric, we raised it, it's because we know that as Charles County gets more expensive, our seniors that used to be able to live off a certain amount of money, it's just harder. So by raising it, it's actually I think sometimes we hear raising and it's like, you did what? But raising helps because it means you can be earning the same and still get the credit.
And we want to follow along with the state. So it used to be 50,000, so now it's 60. So for example, if the state raises it to 70,000 next year,
we'll do the same.
Ours would do all the same automatically.
Okay.
And one good thing is that you can apply online for it, which makes it a lot easier. Usually the forms are available in March, so we have them at the office, and we try to make sure we get the information out to anyone that comes in to the seniors, and we say, please go ahead and apply online.
Right.
That way, when you get your tax bill in July, you already see the credit on your tax bill.
That's awesome. Okay, so being proactive.
Right, and there's a priority enrollment deadline. If you can get your homeowner's application in each year by April 15th, that will guarantee that any credit you qualify for would appear on your July 1st tax bill. The deadline is October 1st, so you can apply throughout the year. It's just that's going to come after you've gotten your July 1st tax bill. It may appear, if you say applied in, say, September, you might be eligible for the credit. It wouldn't have been on your July 1st tax bill. It might appear on the online tax bill. But then if you paid your taxes and you got the credit, then the county's going to have to give you a refund, and sometimes that takes time.
Well, and also if I'm struggling with money, I don't want to give you my money and wait for a refund. I want to not have to. So being proactive sounds like an ongoing. And I always hope that our residents that are watching and listening to this, it's not that we want to put all of the responsibility on the resident. This is a two-way process. The county and the state can do this much, but as a resident, we need you educated, and we need you to be educating your friends and community so that this stuff gets used. Yeah.
And we can, there are a couple of ways we send reminders to people. People can sign up for email alerts to remind them when the tax credit application becomes available. So as Jake said, it's at the end, like the end of February, beginning of March, or as Eric said, the application becomes available for that year. They can apply up until October, but the sooner they apply, the better. And they're going to use their income from the previous year. So a lot of folks are just getting their taxes done. They can use their tax return for that, or they can use a benefit statement if they're on a sort of fixed income.
Okay.
And then there's another category where if your income source is a fixed income, you can apply once, and then your renewals for year 2 and year 3 would just be an attestation. So it's to make it a little bit easier for people who are on fixed incomes.
Where it's not going to change.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
That makes
and
sense.
So that's all on our website, which
Okay.
I think we're going to link in these.
Yeah, we'll make
so
sure that
that's
everybody's
great.
got all these resources. Your phone's going to be ringing off the hook, Bob.
It does do that. Yes.
Tell us any other credits that you want people to be aware of.
Sure. The third credit was, as Eric said, there's a supplemental county tax credit that goes along with the homeowner's tax credit. And then we have a renter's tax credit. So even though you may not be a property owner, you may be eligible. It's the same income requirements. And there are a few other ways you can qualify, but it can get you a credit for up to $1,000 for someone who's renting a property. So that's another sort of housing affordability, stability.
Right. That it
goal.
works for everybody when we have rental homes available.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And then, so to access these credits, we also have the State Tax Sale Ombudsman's Office that helps people who are struggling to pay their property taxes. So they may be aware of these credits, but they may be closer to the tax sale deadline, or they may be beyond the deadline to pay these before interest starts to accrue. The Tax Sale Ombudsman's Office is available to really sit down with you and take a deep dive into what's your circumstance, what's your financial situation, and what resources might be appropriate. They have the Homeowner Protection Loan Program that you can apply for, where we will give you a loan, we'll pay off the debt to the county, put you on a payment plan, and then connect you with resources to pay off that debt. That may include tax credits, but it could also include connecting you with legal resources, with housing counseling, with a budget counselor to help you manage your payments.
If you're struggling to pay your property tax, you're probably
Yeah.
struggling to pay everything.
It's so
Yeah.
true. And so often we'll hear folks, oh, I also just lost my job. We'll connect them with workforce development programs.
Right.
If they have sort of building maintenance issues, we'll connect them with grants that are available for that. And also just any sort of local resources, housing counselors and services in each county. So it's a really we've tried to continue to add sort of wraparound services for people who, to respond to what they need. So
And when we say tax sale, and Eric, I know you've done some educational stuff with us on this, so I don't know which one of you wants to talk about it. But when we say tax sale, what are we talking about?
So tax sale, what it is if the citizen has not paid their taxes by the due date, we have a tax sale annually the second Tuesday of May. What we do is we'll send out a final reminder notice in March, along with a supplemental letter explaining the resources which Bob has,
Right.
If you are struggling, so that you can pay your taxes. I mean, the last thing we want to do is sell someone property at a tax sale. We're really not in a business of selling someone's property so they don't live there anymore.
Right.
We really want to help the homeowner out. So with the tax sale, if your property is sold at tax sale, that doesn't mean that the tax sale purchaser actually owns your property. All they did is pay your taxes for you for a specific period of time. So with that, you do have an opportunity to redeem the property, and you would just pay the taxes plus any interest that accrued, and it accrues once a month for us, and then you would redeem your property. If we go into past September 30th, and let me backtrack for a second. So when the new fiscal year starts in July, it used to be where you would have to pay your prior year taxes plus your current year taxes in order to redeem. Bob and I worked together. We adopted a new law to where in July, if you're going to redeem your property, you just have to pay the prior year taxes up until September 30th.
So you're not kind of finally finding your way up out of the water, gasping for air, and then being shoved right back down underwater
Correct.
again.
Right.
Yeah, it gives a
So-
little bit of a reprieve.
Right, until September 30th. So after September 30th, then you'd have to pay your current year plus the prior year taxes to successfully redeem the property. And with that, once you redeem it, then you're in the clear. Taxes are no longer due, and then you're fine.
And I appreciate hearing that there's the kind of layers of protection. So like proactively apply for the credit, reactively reach out, get the resources, and then even more reactively if it makes it to tax sale. But I hope, tell me if I'm saying this correctly, the first thing that's going to happen is I'm going to get an assessment. And if I look at the assessment and it looks like the assessment doesn't align with my property, or if I look at it compared to the last 3-year assessment, there's a huge difference. I know that it's going to change my property tax, and that's when I should start reaching out for help, not necessarily waiting for my July bill and going, oh my goodness, how am I ever going to be able to pay this? That the earlier people are kind of educated and aware that the sooner we can get help, the sooner we can get help.
For sure. And if you don't understand the document, you can contact your local assessment office. I mean, that's super important. These notices aren't designed to just kind of fulfill a legal requirement. We really want them to be meaningful for people. So we've spent the last couple of years really trying to modify and refine these notices so that they're usable. They talk about the different credits that are available. They explain your current status. You have not applied for a homestead, or you have. You're not listed as owner occupied, or you are. So you really you want to understand what the notice is telling you so you can make adjustments. And then again, you can, if you find right away that you're going to be struggling, reach out to the Ombudsman's office and talk about connecting with resources.
And start it soon.
That's what it's there for, yeah.
I appreciate that. Well, we've covered a lot today. We've talked about the assessment process. We've talked about when you can expect your property taxes, what you can do if you need help, and what credits are available that people should be applying for before they need the help to make it better. I'm going to ask, what's the one thing that, we kind of started with, what's something you hope to talk about today? And I'm going to ask you to wrap up with either that same thing or something else that's popped up in today's conversation that you just really want people to know and remember. So Jake, what's your, this is what I shout from the rooftops, this is what I tell people when they stop me in the grocery store and say, why is my tax bill so high?
One thing that's important to know is that the assessment, the property tax is our largest revenue source. So it's important to us to get this revenue, but it's also important for us, for Bob, to assess it correctly and fairly and so forth. And we also want to make sure we have services there to help people pay their tax bill. So I think that's still important. And even though we need the revenue to pay our bills, but we also want to make sure we're not overtaxing people.
And I think that's a theme that I've heard each of you kind of mention today, that the goal here is not to bleed the people of Charles County dry and get all their tax money. The goal is to do it ethically and equitably and accurately, and then collect in that same manner. Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. Eric, what's the one thing that you tell people when they stop you in the grocery store? What do you wish everybody would know? What do you talk about at family dinners? What's your takeaway?
I would say the first thing is, everyone please look at their tax bills, and if you're a volunteer firefighter, or if you're a veteran or a senior, know that there are opportunities out there for you to have your tax bill reduced.
We've talked about some of them, but there's many more.
There's many more.
There's others that
There's other
exist.
local county credits that you can get, which is listed on our website.
Yep. And I think in a previous episode, I think we did one whole episode of Let's Get Fiscal just on property tax credits.
Just to remind everyone, if you're 100% veteran disabled,
Yeah.
you can apply to get your assessment to zero.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's awesome. All right. Thank you. Bob, you said you have a hard time getting this information out. What do you wish everybody in Maryland, everybody in Charles County knew?
I think what you want to, if you want to look at your assessment, you don't have to wait for your assessment notice once every 3 years. You can visit our website. The Real Property Database is a public searchable tool that has all of your current assessment information, how it's phased in over the next 3 years, how your property is classified. All the information that's on the Real Property assessment notice that you get is on our website. It also shows the status of any tax credits that you've applied for. So I would definitely visit the Real Property Search tool and monitor your own property.
And do that anytime. Don't wait
Anytime.
just be educated.
For sure.
Okay. For being here, Jake Dyer, our Director of Fiscal and Administrative Services.
Thanks for having me again.
Eric Jackson, our Chief of Treasury.
Thank you, Doria.
And Bob Yeager, the Director of State Department of Assessments and Taxation. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Doria.
And thank you so much for tuning in. We hope this episode was valuable and taught you some new information, reminded you to go back and listen to some other episodes. Just get informed, protect yourselves, protect your neighbors, protect your family, protect your community. Thanks so much, Charles County. Take care, stay safe, and stay engaged.
Thanks for listening. If you like this podcast and want to hear more, search Charles County Government on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. And be sure to like and subscribe. We're also available on YouTube. Search Charles County Commissioners. And stay connected for all county news, information, and programs by visiting www.charlescountymd.gov/stay connected.